Phones are expensive, and in some cases they're ridiculously expensive. That's why Samsung is trying to fill a gap with its fan edition devices. They're designed to give you a flagship-like experience without the flagship cost. And this year's S24 FE is no exception. It's cheaper than its more premium siblings and is a good option for someone who wants a decent phone without having to pay the massive cost. Now, with previous FE devices, the differences between them and their premium cousins or siblings were pretty noticeable, but this time around, the gap is much smaller. Sure, the fingerprint sensor is a little bit slower, the display doesn't get as bright, and the design isn't quite as sleek. But when you compare this to the standard S24, honestly, there's very little difference. And here's the thing. If you're looking at the S24 FE for what it doesn't have, i.e. what's been taken out of the S24 standard, I don't think that's the best way to look at it. If you sit back and ask, what am I getting for the price? You start to realize just how good an offering this is. So, come with me as we take a closer look at Samsung's S24 FE and we review it. Welcome to the Tech Shed. I'll start with the price because that's the whole point of the S24 FE. It's a budget-friendly option to the S24 flagship lineup. In New Zealand, this costs $1,199, in Australia, $1,099, in the US, $650, and in Europe, 650 to 700 euros. Take the US and the European prices as you will, though those were kind of tricky and hard to find for some reason. Now, obviously the prices will change depending on your choices. If you want more internal storage, you will have to pay a little bit more. At these prices, I would say that this is at the top of the mid-range category. There are cheaper mid-range phones out there, but when you look at the features you get for this price, it is well worth it. But of course, in order to reach this lower price point, Samsung has had to make some changes, and there have been some trade-offs. I'm going to quickly go through them. I go into more depth in the review. First thing you'll notice is this is massive. It's closer in size to the S24 Ultra than the S24. The display is a 6.7-inch display that isn't quite as crisp and definitely does not get as bright. The overall design doesn't look or feel as premium. The cameras have slightly less resolution lenses, namely the telephoto lens and the selfie camera, and the fingerprint sensor is an optical sensor, not an ultrasonic sensor, so it's slightly slower. But overall, these aren't major changes, and for $250 less, it doesn't bother me. What does bother me though is the design. That screams, I'm a mid-range device, and I put that down to two things. First, the color on the back does not extend to the frame. So you could have a nice blue, but the frame is a silver, gray, whatever you want to call it. It's a dated look and, dare I say, ugly. Number two is it only comes in 4 colors in my country, and they're all a bit bland: blue, black, gray, and mint. You might get more options in your country. That's made even more frustrating when you find out the S24 standard comes in 7 colors and there's some more vibrant options. Other than that, the design is pretty stock standard. It has a glass back, an aluminium frame, and on the front there's an optical finger scanner that's a little bit less accurate than an ultrasonic scanner, but to be honest with you, I didn't have much problem with it. For photography, again, this phone punches above its weight. It has a 3-camera array, a 50 megapixel main camera with optical image stabilization, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and an 8 megapixel telephoto lens with 3x optical zoom. The telephoto lens is the standout here. That's something usually reserved for much more expensive high-range devices. I find that Samsung phones, they often oversaturate their images. It's the same here. What that means is it doesn't always accurately represent realism or what it looked like to your eyes. So greens and yellows are much more lush than they were in person. Some people love that, some people don't. For night photography, it's a bit hit or miss. I found that the conditions had to be perfect in order to get a good photo. What I mean by that is my subject had to be well lit and separated from the background. If they weren't or it wasn't, it blended into the dark areas and didn't look great. On the front, there's a 10 megapixel selfie camera. That's as good as you'd expect. It does a good job in portrait mode of separating the background and blurring it with the subject in focus. I tested this wearing glasses and it got the frames quite well as well. It's fine. I did notice on the photos that there was sometimes a bit of a halo effect in lit up scenes or lit up areas, which isn't the best, but I'm not complaining about it. It's fine. You can also obviously video with this up to 8K at 30 FPS, 4K in 30 and 60 FPS, and then 1080p 30, 60, so on and so forth. I will also add that it supports Super HDR, so with your photos and videos, the light areas are lighter and the dark areas are darker. For photography, it's pretty damn good for the price. Under the hood, the S24 FE utilizes the Exynos 2400E processor. This is slightly less powerful than the 2400 in the S24 standard. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. In America, the US, you are lucky because you will get the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, which is more powerful than both of those. Either way, gaming, surfing the web, using the phone from whatever, it's going to be able to do it. In regards to performance, absolutely no issues, and you probably won't even be able to tell the difference between the standard S24 and the S24 FE. In fact, you definitely won't be able to. This runs on Android 14 and has Samsung's One UI 6.1 layered on top. If you've ever used a Samsung phone, it's exactly the same. You get Samsung DeX, edge panels, multitasking capabilities, easy simple navigation, yada yada, so on and so forth. All pretty straightforward stuff. It's also compatible with Samsung's Galaxy AI, so those adverts you've seen on TV or YouTube where you circle something and it removes it from the photo, that's here. Circle to search, that's here. Sketch to image, where in my case I draw an absolutely crap image and it makes it way better, that's here. Translator, so much more. And what's good is those are cloud-based, so they don't use the less powerful 2400E processor. They're performed in the cloud. That means you'll get similar results with this as you would with the S24 Ultra, and I'll add that this is $800 cheaper. Not bad. I will add though that in order to do that, for a lot of those features you do have to have data, so you will have to be connected to the internet. This will also get 7 years worth of updates from Google for the Android OS. And lastly, the battery. This has a 4,700 milliampere hour battery that will give you around 16 hours of moderate usage. Moderate usage being surfing the web, going through social media, that sort of thing. For heavy usage like gaming, that's going to drop a bit to around 10 to 11 hours. It supports 25 watt wired charging, which will give you 50% juice after a 30-minute charge, 15 watt wireless charging, which is pretty slow, and it also has reverse charging in which you can put your Samsung headphones or watch on here and it will charge them. One thing that really annoys me about this, and it really annoys me about nearly every single device I get, is there's no charging brick in the box, just a cord. Whoever made that change, rubbish. So, what do I think of the S24 FE? I think that this is great value for the price. Yes, you are sacrificing a little bit in areas. The design isn't as nice, the camera's not quite as good, the display not as bright, the fingerprint sensor not as accurate. But when it has a price tag that's $250 less than a standard S24, it's hard to pass this up. If you're looking for a phone that has flagship-like features without the flagship cost, then this has hit the nail on the head. That's been my review of the S24 FE. This has been the Tech Shed. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.